Good afternoon and welcome to the first day of the AGE Central Texas Caregiver Training Camp. My name is Rob Fabian and I am the Director of Communications and Marketing here at AGE of Central Texas. And we are a regional nonprofit organization that serves older adults, family caregivers. We are so glad that you're joining us today. We created the Caregiver Training Camp to help you in your caregiving journey, to provide you with the resources, the education, and the information that can assist you, and especially those of you who are early in your caregiving journey, to help you along in this journey. You know, we like to say that caregiving is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And so the more information that you have, the more resources that you have at your fingertips, then the better prepared you're going to be as you're caregiving for your older loved one. So this week we have 4 fantastic presentations lined up for you to help you out to do just that, to give you the tools and the resources that will assist you so that you can be successful in your caregiving journey. Before we get started this morning, I've got a very quick video that we want to share. We are very thankful that our friends over at Baylor Scott & White Health have signed on to be our presenting sponsors. And so they have some information for you that we're going to share right now.
Hello, my name is Dr. Sudhir Shenoy, and I'm an ophthalmologist here at Baylor Scott & White. With so much technology at the palm of our hands, we've been spending a lot of time on screens. Whether it's for a job, a hobby, or for scrolling through social media, your eyes can feel the impact. I'm here to give you some tips. Humans normally blink about 15 times per minute, so when we look at a computer, it goes down to only 5 to 7 times a minute. Try to remind yourself to blink more often. You can also try artificial tears or put a humidifier in the room. This can especially be helpful during the wintertime when the heater is on and the humidity is lower in the house. When you stare at a computer or read a book for an extended period of time, you can strain your eyes. Try the 20-20-20 rule. Every 20 minutes, take a 20-second break and focus on something at least 20 feet or further away. Adjust your screen brightness to match the level of light around you in order to reduce the amount of work your eyes have to do. You can also increase the contrast on your screen. Try adjusting your position. Sit about arm's length away from the screen. Position it so your eyes gaze slightly downward. There is no evidence that light from a computer screen is damaging to your eyes. Blue light blocking glasses are not necessary. But ultraviolet light from the sun can damage your eyes and cause cataracts, pterygiums, or cancer. If you have any questions about your eye or your eye health, please contact your doctor.
All right, a few little housekeeping items before we get started this morning. Since we are online, and this is kind of a brand new world for all of us, if we have any tech issues this afternoon, please forgive us. But if we by chance happen to disconnect or you get bumped off, don't worry, because we are recording these sessions and they will be available later this week on the AGE of Central Texas YouTube channel. And that way you can share them, you can go back and look at them later, and they'll be available for you to review in the future. Also, we sent you our program for the sessions, and there's some fantastic information in there, including information from all of our sponsors. And in addition, we sent you a copy of the Caregiver Playbook and Caregiver Resources. So be sure and take a look at those because there's some fantastic information in there. Lori's going to refer to some of the items that are in there in her presentation today. Finally, we want to tell you about the chat feature. Right down here, there's a little bubble. It looks kind of like one of those thought bubbles in the comics. Click on that, and while Lori is doing her presentation, ask your questions, because these sessions are for you, and we want to be able to answer all of your questions today. So when Lori is finished with her presentation, we're going to have a facilitated Q&A, and we're going to answer all of your questions. So be sure and ask your questions. Now, for some reason, we happen to have more questions than we have time, because we are going to be very cognizant of our time. We promised you that we would stop on time, and that's what we're going to do. If for some reason we run out of time to answer all the questions, don't worry. We are still going to answer your question. We will contact you directly via email, and we will answer your questions. One last item: at the end of all of our sessions, we're going to send you a survey, and we ask that you please fill out that survey and send it back to us. It'll be electronic. It'll only take you a couple of minutes, but it's very important because we need to know what are the resources that you need that we didn't cover, so that we can make sure that we get those for you and for all future caregivers as we do these sessions. So it's my pleasure now to introduce Lori Hill. She is with AGE of Central Texas. She is Program Associate for our CaregiverU program, which offers free caregiver classes, both in person and virtually, throughout the 4-county region. And of course, our virtual classes are also available anywhere in the world. You can find all of those online at CaregiverU CenTX. So it's caregiver, the letter U, CenTX.org. And there's also a flyer in your program. And if you are joining this after we have been live and you're watching the recording, down in the comment section, we also have a link directly to the program and has all that information in it. Lori, I am going to turn it over to you. I'm going to share my screen once again so that I can share your PowerPoint, but it's all yours, Lori.
Thank you so much, Rob. Welcome, everyone. And thank you for coming and spending some of the afternoon with us today. As Rob mentioned, I'm Lori Hill. I'm with AGE of Central Texas, and I work in the CaregiverU program, which is one of AGE's 7 programs. Now, you, I assume, are mostly newer caregivers. And because there really is no orientation, there's no on-the-job training, you are simply doing your best to figure it all out as you go. My goal is to provide you with a little bit of an orientation. Today, I would like to talk to you about some things that you can do in your caregiving journey to make it a little bit easier. At the end of my presentation, as Rob mentioned, we will get to that chat box and we will do our best to answer all of your questions today. The ones that we don't get answered, we will reach out to you directly. Now, on the screen is what we will be talking about today. Next slide, please. We will touch on the many faces of caregiving, first of all, and then what to do early on or how to get organized. We'll talk about the benefits of creating a routine and some of the different types of respite that is available. And I will also talk about caregiver self-care and why that's so important. Next slide, please. According to Family Caregiver Alliance, there are roughly 53 million caregivers in the United States, and I'm sure that number is continuing to grow. Now, I'm not going to throw a bunch of statistics at you, but I do want to touch on the many faces of caregiving. So listen and see where you fit in. The typical family caregiver usually cares for a family member or loved one, possibly a friend or neighbor or other. And by other, I'm referring to the caregivers that are caring for possibly an ex-spouse or maybe an estranged parent. And they're doing that because they simply think it's the right thing to do. So all caregivers aren't necessarily caring for a loved one. Caregivers provide care, maybe in their own homes, or if their care receiver is in a city nearby or town nearby, or possibly in a long-term care community where they're answering those phone calls in the middle of the night, or maybe driving back and forth to deal with different issues. Possibly, they're a long-distance caregiver. Their care receiver may live in a town far away, or maybe even across the country or in another country. Some caregivers are employed outside of the home. They're juggling either a full-time job or part-time job at the same time that they're providing care. They may have multiple care receivers. Maybe they're caring for both of their parents, or maybe a spouse and a sibling. And they could be a part of that sandwich generation where they're caring for an older adult and at the same time, they're raising their own kids, sometimes under the same roof. And then there's those caregivers who really have not yet self-identified. If you ask them about it, they might say, oh, no, I'm not really a caregiver. I just help out a little bit. Well, that makes them a caregiver then. And there are so many different terms in regards to caregiving these days. Care receiver, care recipient, loved one, your person, caretaker, caregiver, care partner, and there's probably many more. But whatever term that you use is the perfect term for you. So as you can hear, there are a lot of caregivers. There are a lot of you out there, and you are doing a lot of good work. It can be extremely rewarding, but it can also be very stressful and very challenging as well. So you find yourself in the role of caregiver or care partner, like I mentioned. Let's talk about some steps that you can take now to possibly make your journey a little easier down the road. As Rob mentioned, caregiving for someone with a chronic disease or condition can be a marathon, not a sprint. The caregiving can sometimes last for a very, very long time. So if you are new to caregiving, be patient with yourself. Give yourself some grace. Learning is a messy process of trial and error. Remember that you're doing the very best you can in the situation that you're in. I'll be giving some general caregiving tips as well as a few tips for those of you who are caring with a person who's been diagnosed with a type of dementia. So let's take a look. One of the first things that you may want to do is to get organized. It'll take some work, but you can do it a little bit at a time. First, learn everything you can about the disease or condition that you're dealing with. Knowledge is power, and you will be better prepared if you understand the disease or condition and you kind of have an idea of what's coming down the road. So get all the information you can about the disease, starting with whatever the doctor can provide. It's good to get a full diagnosis and also a prognosis, meaning what is the likely course of the disease. There are so many books and publications out there containing wonderful tips on caregiving and also some disease-specific information. Maybe you're someone who likes to look online and do online research. It's great to do that. Just make sure that you're sticking with reputable websites, such as those ending in .org, .edu, or .gov. There are a lot of good .com websites out there as well, but just be careful and keep in mind that some of the .com websites are a little more about marketing or promoting or selling and less about solid information and education. So just keep that in the back of your mind. We did provide a handout for you in your materials about tips for finding reliable online health information. So if you want to get a little bit more guidance, that's a great handout for you to read. Again, the more you educate yourself, the better prepared you're going to be. Next, start seeking out community resources that may be of assistance to you now and also in the future. So start building that network. Find out early what organizations that you may be able to use both for information and also for services, places where you can get a little bit of help. We've gotten you off to a good start. We've included a resource page, and it's going to give you some websites and some phone numbers for some local as well as some national organizations that can provide you with some information and some help that you can use in your caregiving. Next, I recommend that you create a binder. It's really good to have all the information that you need about your caregiver, all of the paperwork in one place in that binder. Knowing where things are and knowing where to find them is definitely going to also bring down your stress level a little bit. Plus, not only will it keep you organized, but in the case that someone needs to come in and take over in the caregiving for a brief amount of time, you will have the binder and it will make it a little more seamless. Now, that may never happen. I understand that, but sometimes the unexpected happens. So it's definitely a really good idea to be prepared. So what would you have in your binder, especially thinking about if someone were to come in and take over for a little bit? Well, possibly you could start with some brief information about your caregiver's disease or condition so that the temporary caregiver would know what they're dealing with. Maybe your care receiver's daily schedule. What does a typical day in the life look like for your care receiver? We're going to talk a little bit more later on about routines. Some of you may already have a routine and a daily schedule, and some of you don't, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that later. You may want to add some of your care receiver's likes or dislikes. You're the expert on your person. You know what makes them happy. You know what makes them comfortable. You also know what rattles them and what they don't like. So if there's anything that's really obvious, you may want to include that in your binder as well. Also list some respite care provider information. List the names and numbers of the respite care facilities that you have decided to use if needed. You will want to have at least a couple of respite care options and have the intake process completed before you need the respite care. We're going to talk more about respite care in just a few minutes. It's also good to have a list of your care receivers' doctors, their specialty, and their phone number. The doctor's name and phone number is great, but having their specialty is really helpful. That way you know who's the heart doctor, for example, or which one is the primary care physician. Those things are pretty important to know as well. And have the insurance information that you need. Have that handy in your binder so that you can access that easily. It's also good to have a list of current medications. And if you're not someone that keeps those on the kitchen counter or on the kitchen table, maybe they're hidden for some reason or another, you might want to jot down on that medication list where the medications can be found in the house. This list should include the doses, which you can find directly on the prescription label. And of course, the information would need to be updated every time there's a change in the medication. When you do make a change to your medication list, definitely put the last updated date somewhere on the page as well. That way, whoever is in charge of managing the medications, whether it be a temporary caregiver or a medical professional, they will know when the list was last updated, and it will enable them to know they're using a current list. And for some of you, it might even be helpful to have a packing list. Should a temporary caregiver need to pack a suitcase for your care receiver, it might be a good idea to include a list of what would need to be kept in the suitcase in case your care receiver would need to be moved from your house to another home temporarily. Now, this binder can be a great value in helping you to be organized and in case of emergency where someone else would need to come in and take over. Now, also, it's good to have a separate medical folder, or you could even make a smaller separate medical binder to take to each doctor's appointments. Now, you would be able to make copies of some of the things from your original binder to put in your medical binder. So for instance, the medication list, you can make a copy of that, and the list of doctors, their specialty and phone number. You could also easily make a copy of that to put in your medical binder. But other things that would need to go in your binder would, of course, be the person's insurance information would need to go in there as well. And it's also good to include those appointment summaries, those notes that can be easily printed out from the doctor. So at the end of a doctor's appointment, ask the staff if they wouldn't mind printing out one of those appointment summaries and then just put it in your binder. That way, when you're at the next doctor's appointment and they want to know an update on your person's health, you can easily access that appointment reminder and give it to the doctor. Make sure you're including any kind of forms such as medical power of attorney. If you are the medical power of attorney, it would be good for you to have that document in your medical folder. Any kind of legal, the HIPAA forms that need to be signed, if you have copies of those would also be good information to have in your binder as well. By doing this and having this information, it can really be beneficial and make medical appointments easier and more productive. And don't forget to prep for your medical appointments. Make sure that you take some time, think about the questions that you want to have addressed while you're at your care receiver's doctor's appointment, and write those down to ensure that all your needs are met and that nothing slips through the cracks. Next, legal forms. It's good to obtain necessarily legal forms, such as advanced directives, possibly visiting an elder law attorney and having the necessary documents prepared to facilitate care for the long term. This is their expertise. They know all about these documents and which ones you need and can walk you through the process. If you're not able to do this, you can also obtain some necessary legal forms by downloading them online. Texas Health and Human Services has some of the necessary legal documents that you will need. So you can go to their website and you can download them directly from there. Take care of this early on, especially if you're caring for someone with a form of dementia. You want to get any necessary signatures from your care receiver before the dementia progresses and it becomes too late. This is to protect you and to protect your care recipient. We have provided a brief article to help guide you on the necessary legal documents that may be important for you to have as a caregiver. I believe it's from dailycaring.com, and you can access those in the materials that were sent to you. Lastly, it's really a good idea to pay attention or begin paying attention to safety issues, especially if your care receiver has been diagnosed with a type of dementia. Dementia is progressive, and at some point, judgment will be affected. Now, we use judgment every day to make good decisions and also to keep ourselves safe. With dementia, judgment will eventually become compromised, and the caregiver will need to take more and more control. By preparing and becoming more involved early on, you can protect your care receiver as well as the entire family from any kind of crises. For example, taking control of medications sooner or later, or at least monitoring them, can help avoid a disastrous medication mishap. Sometimes caregivers don't really realize that their care receiver has become unable to manage things like medications. And so just be observant and keep an eye out. And if you see any signs that it's possible to step in and help with something like medication management or bill paying, management tasks in the home, such as banking and those types of things. If you notice that there may be a problem, it's good to maybe step in and give some extra support. Your care receiver is not always going to ask for help or say that they're having an issue. So that's where those good observation skills can be. And I know it's tricky for some caregivers to start to give extra support or take control over certain situations. So maybe that's a time to call AGE of Central Texas and ask for the Caregiver Resource Center. Get some ideas on how that can be done in a respectful and a more seamless way. Okay, now we're going to talk about the importance of creating a routine. This can be very, very helpful to you, especially if your care receiver is in the home with you. Now, by routine, I simply mean doing the same things around the same time every day. This gives consistency and a sense of what comes next. A consistent routine may also help you to stay organized and to get through your day with less stress. It also decreases the amount of decision-making on your part, which can definitely make your life a little bit easier. I mean, think about it, as a caregiver, you're making many decisions, rather big or small. So the fewer decisions you have to make, the better. A routine may also give a feeling of security to your care receiver as they start to become familiar with the daily schedule. Whiteboards can really come in handy. So listing the day's events on a whiteboard may serve as a way for your care receiver, especially those with dementia, to be able to see what the day will bring. And they can refer back to the whiteboard as often as they need to. And this may help cut back a little bit on those repeated questions as well. And routines also help you get your sleep schedule back on track, both for you and for the person that you're caring for, which is extremely important. I don't know about you, but if I go even one night where I have very little sleep, I have a very difficult time with concentrating, with decision makings. Everything kind of seems overwhelming to me. And I definitely have a hard time controlling my emotions and being patient with others. When you're more rested, you're able to tackle challenges. So make sure that you're getting the sleep that you need. And when you're building your schedule, your routine, don't forget to build in relaxation and enjoyable activities into your schedule for you as well as your care receiver. Doing relaxing and fun things, even for short periods of time throughout the day, is a good part of self-care, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. In your material, you will find more information on why it's important and helpful for you as a caregiver to create a routine. Next slide, please. All right, let's talk about respite care options. Now, I know during the pandemic, a lot of respite care has kind of been shut down, but as we reopen, I want you to understand what your options are. So I just want to give you the information so that when it's time, that you will know where and what is a good fit for you and your care receiver. So by respite, basically in a nutshell, I mean a time off or a break. Everyone needs this. You need time off to run errands or to take care of personal business, to get a break and refresh yourself, recharge your battery by meeting a friend for lunch, going for a walk, or doing something else that you personally enjoy. And you're also going to need respite for other reasons, like possibly someday you go on vacation. I know I'm looking forward to doing that again. Maybe you become ill and you can't care for your person for a short amount of time, or you have another out-of-town obligation or emergency that you need to take care of. Now, most respite options have an intake process, which takes time. But even if you're unsure if you will actually use the option, it's just a good idea to be prepared. The reason for that is that if your care receiver is already in a company or facility system, if they've already gone through that intake process, getting respite will be faster and less stressful when you actually need it. You don't want to have to start the process of intake when you're in the middle of a crisis situation. So do this before you actually need the service. Let's explore some respite options. First, there's in-home care. There are various in-home care agencies. I'm sure you've seen lots of commercials and even on billboards. They provide personal care attendants, sometimes nursing if necessary, or home health aides to come into the care receiver's home or the caregiver's home and provide companionship, supervision, and sometimes some light household services, and that's done for a fee. There's also individual in-home care workers, and this would be someone who's not part of an agency. They're not a professional paid caregiver, but they do provide care for a fee. That's always an option. I know a lot of people have maybe a neighbor that takes care of someone in their home and they pay for that, or their aunt's friend or something maybe comes in and does that. And that's an option for some people. However, I do recommend that you do go through those agencies, those home health care agencies, and there's a few reasons why. First of all, the agency is going to have a full staff of people, not just one person. So if your paid caregiver becomes ill, or for some reason they just aren't able to come when you need them, there are other staff members that can be sent out. Also, reputable home health agencies should be bonded and insured for your protection as well as their own. And finally, employees of in-home care agencies should have gone through a background check and or drug screen, and that's very, very important. I mean, if you think about it, this person is coming to your home or your care receiver's home, and you may or may not be there. So it's really important when you're calling around to look into possibly hiring in-home care that you check and to see that these procedures are done for your safety and for your care receiver's safety. Another option for in-home care is to consider asking a good friend or family member to come periodically and provide care so that you can run errands or take a break. This is a way that friends and or family may be able to provide caregiving help for you, and also to spend a little time with your care receiver as well, which is always nice. I know that this is not an option for everybody, but for some of you it is. So definitely, if you haven't done this, consider it. Consider giving someone, a friend or family member, the gift of helping you out. They may just say yes, and it's a win-win when they get to help you and also spend some time with your care receiver. There are also several options for out-of-home care. There are adult day centers. AGE of Central Texas, offers adult day centers. We have 2 of them, and they're for caregivers looking for 1 or more days of regular respite care on a weekly basis. We have the AGE Thrive Social and Wellness Centers. For more information on those day centers, you can access the AGE of Central Texas flyer that was sent to you in your information. Now, one advantage of using a day center is that even if you only use it once or twice a week to start with, it still gives your care receiver a chance to get familiar with the center. And down the road, if more days are required, there's less of an adjustment period for your person because they're already familiar with the staff. They already know the other members. And so transitioning from a shorter amount of care to a longer amount of care is more seamless. There are also social respite groups that are available. They provide recreation, fellowship, and a meal to older adults needing supervision. Some social respite programs are dementia specific and some aren't. So you would definitely want to call ahead and find out specific information about the program and whether or not there is an intake process. In many cases, these programs are part of a church's ministry, and they're offered free of charge, usually once a week on the same day of each week. Social respite groups are staffed by volunteers. So each one is just a little bit different. Now, we have provided a list of social respite groups for you. You may want to take a look at that list and see if there's any of them that are near your home. A lot of them are closed down currently. Some of them, however, are offering some virtual services. So you might want to call around and see what is offered. And it might even be good to get on a waiting list so that maybe when everything starts to open up, you can go ahead and take advantage of those social respite groups. Lastly, assisted living and or memory care communities are available for caregivers who need all day or overnight respite care due to events such as emergencies, illness of the caregiver, or any other reason for respite. Now, not all of these communities reserve beds for respite. So find out which ones offer this specific type of service. Now, there's definitely a cost and there's an intake process for this type of respite. So it's good to find at least 2 that you would like to use and go through the intake process so that your care receiver is already in the system should you need respite on really short notice. Now, the reason that I recommend going through the intake process for at least 2 is that if you need respite and one falls through, for example, they only have 5 respite beds reserved and they're all full. If that's the case, then at least you have a backup plan, because sometimes you really need respite care of this type on short notice. And so it's good to go through that intake process for at least 2 communities in case you ever need it. Whatever type you choose, I encourage you to use respite care, not just for emergencies, but because you need a break from time to time. It's all a part of good self-care. Self-care is not selfish. Your care receiver is also going to benefit from you taking care of yourself. And also, good self-care is important because you matter. You deserve to be happy and to have a good quality of life as you provide good care. So don't forget about you. Take care of your general health. And I know that we've all heard this before, but it truly is important. If you're not taking care of your health, it will eventually suffer. And it will also be hard for you to provide that good care that is so important to you. So try to eat a healthy diet. I like cookies and ice cream as well, and that's a wonderful treat from time to time. But try to make sure that most of the time you're putting healthy food in your body. And it's also important, try not to eat on the run. When you're having a meal, sit down and relax and enjoy your meal. You deserve that. You deserve to do that for yourself. Make sure that you're getting a little bit of exercise each day, even if it's 15 minutes or so. Walking is always a really great exercise that gets you out and about. And sometimes your care receiver may be able to walk with you as well, which is good for that person too. There are different options for exercise. Find something that works for you. I know during the pandemic, I discovered YouTube exercise videos. I started with beginner weight training. It was only 15 minutes. Now I'm up to 30. There's a range that you can do, but there are so many different videos on YouTube with Tai Chi or yoga. Just get on there and poke around and see if maybe that's something that you could do that would work for you. Also, there are some online exercise opportunities. SeniorPlanet.org offers free online morning exercises. I've been on there myself. It's basically clicking on a Zoom link and you can drop right in. You may not be able to stay for the entire class, but at least you could get in there, get a little social connection and a little bit of exercise. And we mentioned sleep earlier, or I mentioned sleep earlier. Sleep is so very, very important. Now, if you're fighting with sleep issues, maybe it's time to talk to your doctor about that. If your care receiver is having sleep issues, then that's probably going to affect your sleep as well. If that's the case, reach out to their doctor, explain what's going on, and see what they suggest. And they very well may be able to help you with that also, so that you can both get the sleep that you need. Make sure that you're getting your yearly physical. You're getting those vaccines that you need, the flu shot or shingles vaccine. Make sure you're getting your vaccines updated and take care of any issues that you may have. Just like you would do the same thing for your person. If your care receiver was ill or was having problems with their back or any kind of medical situation that they're having, just like you would take them to the doctor and get that addressed, make sure that you're giving that gift to yourself. When you put medical issues on the back burner and you don't address them, they're most likely not going to go away on their own. A lot of times they get worse and they can even become more costly in the end. If it's difficult for you to get to the doctor, you can look into telehealth appointments and see if that maybe would be something that you could do. Those have become a lot more common nowadays, but make sure that you are addressing any health needs that you have. Next, ask for help. This is a really tough one for some caregivers, but you're human. You're not a superhero. You can't do everything on your own, and it's not healthy for you to try. So consider it. Think of family members, friends, or neighbors, possibly volunteer organizations that may be able to support you. And I'm not necessarily talking about having someone step in and help with the caregiving. I've already talked about that and talked about the importance of respite. I'm talking about someone that can maybe take care of some of the non-caregiving tasks on your list, which would free up some time for you and take some things off your very full plate. Maybe running an errand for you or asking someone to help out with dropping off a meal once a month, or maybe mowing your lawn every couple of months. Think of what you would have on your wish list. In fact, write down a wish list. What are some things that you could really use some help with? Often someone will be talking with us and say, hey, let me know if you need anything. I'd be happy to help. We'll take them up on that. Have your list and let them choose. Let them look at your list and choose something that would suit their personality or their schedule, and let them help out. Or consider using your polite assertiveness and asking someone for help. If you've been needing to have a project around the house completed, like a small project, and you happen to know that a neighbor of yours loves to tinker around and do handyman type work, consider asking them if they wouldn't mind putting up that shower bar for your care receiver or those types of things. You can always thank them with a plate of cookies if that would help you to feel better as well. But let others have the gift of giving you a little bit of help. Make sure that you're taking a break. Now, we talked about respite care and how important that is. But even taking a few minutes to go for a walk, connect with a friend, or simply sit outside and enjoy the beautiful evening air, that can recharge your battery. I know for me, if I need a break, I can take 10 minutes and sit down with a crossword puzzle and just get lost in it. It gives me a break mentally, and it really helps me to recharge my battery. We're all different. So think about yourself and something that really is relaxing for you and doesn't take a lot of time. I'm talking about mini breaks or micro breaks, 5 to 10 minute breaks. You really need to be taking those breaks throughout the day to help to keep you rejuvenized and ready to tackle the next thing in your caregiving day. That's really, really important. Now, sometimes you need to get a little bit creative. For example, I know a couple who lives here in Austin and their son lives out of state. And every Friday, the son calls his mom and dad. He talks to his dad who has dementia. He keeps him safely on the phone to visit for a little while. He gets to connect with his dad that way, but also it gives his mom, who is the caregiver, a little bit of a break. Now, early on in the dementia, when the son would call, his mom would be able to go on a 15, 20-minute walk, which was really nice for her. But as the dementia has progressed, she's no longer able to leave the house, but she can maybe step into another room with an earshot, pull out a magazine and read for a little bit, or light a candle and just listen to some music and just take some deep breaths and relax. But it gives her a break. And it's a really, really creative way to get that break. Another self-care option is to join a support group. Being with other caregivers, even virtually, can be very, very helpful. It can give you a chance to share your feelings, to vent, and to even get some new ideas to try. Now, support groups are not one size fits all. They're all a little bit different. So if you visit one and you don't feel like it's a good fit, be sure to try another one. Now, once everything opens up again, in-person support groups are definitely best for those social connections, but there are a lot of virtual support groups that are going on right now for caregivers. So if you're not in a support group, consider giving this a try. We have provided you a list of virtual support groups that are going on right now. So take a minute if you're interested and look at that list of support groups and consider reaching out and giving one or more of those a try. And finally, consider taking a CaregiverU class. We mentioned before that knowledge is power. Knowledge is also going to give you a sense of control, and it's going to help in bringing down your stress level. CaregiverU has 6 classes that we are now offering. Most of them we are offering online. We have 3 evidence-based national curriculums that are longer multi-session classes. And then we have 3 short courses that are 2 to 3 sessions long. 2 of them are dementia-specific classes. 2 of them are general caregiving classes. And then we also have 2 different fall prevention classes. You can check the CaregiverU website for more information on what you'll learn in the classes. And also, every time a class is scheduled, we are sure to post those on the CaregiverU website so that you have all the information you need, including registrar information. All CaregiverU classes are free to the community, but you must register as spots are limited. So registration is necessary for those. I hope that today's brief caregiver orientation will help you in your caregiving journey. I hope you've gained a few nuggets of information that you'll be able to apply in your caregiving. Remember, you're not perfect. You're going to make some mistakes along the way, but again, give yourself some grace. And who knows, someday you may be able to share what you've learned in your caregiving journey with a new caregiver sometime down the line. Thank you so much for joining us today. We truly appreciate your time and attention. And Rob, I believe we can open up for some questions.
Thank you so very much there, Lori. We really appreciate that. That's a lot of information that we went through. And so we've got a lot to unpack here, and that's fantastic. Once again, if you've got questions, be sure and put those into the chat. We're going to answer as many of them as we can. We promised that we would cut off at 2:30. So we've got plenty of time to answer your questions. One question is, are there any good neurologists in Austin that we would recommend? It says, my mom has okay, if there's any good neurologists. Sorry, I was reading through the question there. Yes, there are a lot of great neurologists here in the Austin area. I would highly recommend that you get in touch with the AGE Central Texas Caregiver Resource Center. The information is included in your program. We can give you a list of the neurologists that are in the area. There are, like I said, a lot of them. Some are better than others. That's just the way the world is. But we do have a list of a lot of them that we recommend, that we have worked with for many, many years. And so there are great ones here that can help you out. To that point, if you think that your loved one is having an issue with memory issues, then certainly please do talk to your primary physician and ask them for a referral to a neurologist. If you thought that you might have cancer, you would want to go and have that checked out. Same thing. If you think you're having a memory issue, you want to have it checked out. The key here always is early detection. The sooner that you can find out what is wrong, the easier it is to take care of it. I think, Lori, you'll attest that, especially with dementia, that if you can find out early what the issue is, and more importantly, what type of dementia it is, then there are many things that can be done early in the process.
Absolutely. And treating symptoms. There's certain medications you can use for one type of dementia, but it can be dangerous to use with someone with a different type of dementia. You want to know what you're dealing with. You want to get as much information as you can. And I also wanted to add that if you do get a referral to a specialist like a neurologist or geriatric psychologist, it's really good idea to check and make sure that that physician has some experience with dementia. Different neurologists specialize in different things. Some specialize in head injuries. Some might specialize in seizures. Make sure you're going to someone who's very familiar with dementia so that you can get a good, solid diagnosis.
That's great advice. And I'm always reminded of something the neurology doctors told me when I was first starting in this field, is that when it comes to the medications that we have available for dementia, they're very limited. We don't have a lot. And the only time that they are useful is early in the diagnosis. His analogy was that by the time people start really presenting in a lot of the behaviors that identify as dementia, at that point, they're kind of in the midpoint of the dementia. And at that point, it's too late to try medication, because his analogy was, it's like putting gasoline into a car that has no engine. And so the medication has no effect. And so if you're seeing little troubling signs, let's get them checked out. It's better to find out, oh, there's nothing wrong. That's a possibility. But if there is something wrong, it's better to find out early so that we can do something about it. And of course, AGE Central Texas has a number of programs that can assist with, no matter where you are, where your loved one is in their dementia progression, from very early into later into it. We have a lot of programs that can assist them to give them quality life, in addition to assisting you as the caregiver to help you out as well. Got a question about how to find a caregiver to help in the home. This particular person who's joining us today does have a lady who comes and helps out, but she is not trained in dementia specifically. And so wondering, I love this lady. She's fantastic. She's wonderful. She helps out so much, but she doesn't have specific dementia training. So is there somewhere to look to find a caregiver to come into the home to help me out?
Well, that's where you need to possibly start to call those in-home health care companies, and let them know what you're dealing with, that your care receiver has dementia, and that you're looking for caregivers who are experienced in dealing with someone who has dementia. That's probably going to be your best bet. It's always good to maybe have the caregiver can still maybe come over for maybe shorter amounts of time, and you can let them spend a little time together and maybe set up an activity for the person. But as far as the day-to-day care or care on a regular basis, it might be time to move to one of those in-home care companies that have experienced caregivers that are trained to deal with dementia.
Right. And The AGE Central Texas Caregiver and Resource Center can help you in identifying what company might be the best for you. As Lori mentioned, different companies have different specializations, and there are hundreds of them, and trying to go through the whole list of them to find the one that's best for you just takes far too much time. We know most of them personally, and we can help you find the one that is best suited for your specific need. I'll make a plug here for using a company. Lori, you talked about some of the very specific things, like they are bonded, that they do the drug tests, that you have a reliable source. Let's say the person that's coming in is sick, then the company's going to have a backup so that you're not stranded without that person. A lot of people ask whether it's easier just to, post on Craigslist and find somebody who can come in and help. That's not usually a great idea, simply because you don't have those layers of protection as you would with a company that is doing all of the background and the homework for you. Yes, it costs a few dollars more, but those are few dollars that are worth it. The other thing is, when you hire someone directly, someone from church, a friend, something like that, you are now their employer. So legally, you have to pay their taxes as the employer, and the IRS will come after you if you don't. And so that is something most people don't realize. They have to file the taxes every year as the employer. The other thing is, your homeowner's insurance does not cover that person. So you need to have a separate liability insurance policy on that person. If they strain their back getting dad out of the bathtub and they sue you, you are not covered. You have to have separate liability insurance. So much easier just to spend a couple of more dollars, have the professional who has the training, who is bonded, have them come into the house. And again, we can help you here at AGE Central Texas find who that person is. We've got a question about mom who has Alzheimer's. Mom is asking a lot of the same questions over and over. And for those of us who are caregivers with loved ones who have dementia, we know this is an issue, that they will continue to ask the same question, mainly because the part of the brain that realizes the question has been answered is no longer functioning. And so for that person, when they think of the question, it's brand new to them again, even though they just asked it 2 minutes before. Specifically, though, this person is asking that the mom is asking about her parents and her sister, both of whom are deceased. And when this caregiver gives them the answers that they're looking for, they don't want to say, "Don't you remember your mom and dad are dead?" That's not something we want to do, because the care recipient doesn't remember those things, and suddenly they're mourning that all over again when that's presented to them. But after the 7th or 8th time of asking those same things, it gets to be very wearing on you as a caregiver. So how can we answer these questions, number one, without upsetting the person who has dementia, and how to keep them calm and even divert them away from asking these questions over and over and over again?
Yes, that's a good point. Because every time you're reminding them of the death of their loved one, they're grieving that all over again. And we were talking before this, Rob, and you mentioned that sometimes there's a reason that they're asking the question. And can you share that with the audience?
Certainly. So a lot of times when your older adult who has dementia is asking the same questions over and over again, it's not necessarily that specific question that they're asking. They're wanting to know something else, but they just don't have the cognitive tools to ask that question. The example that I gave was, saw a presentation a few years ago that the caregiver was taking care of her dad. And every evening at the same time, the dad would always ask, "Where's mom?" And of course, mom has been dead for several years, but always it's, "Where's mom? Where's mom? Where's mom?" And this caregiver finally asked, why do you need mom? And the answer was, mom knows where my pajamas are. So the question wasn't necessarily, where is mom? It's, where are my pajamas? So maybe if the person is asking about their mom or their sister, I want to talk to my sister. Maybe the answer could be, that would be great. Your sister's not available right now, but what would you like to talk to her about?
Yeah, do a little digging and find out the reason.
Yeah. And so, kind of very gently find out what is happening. If the answer is, I haven't talked to my sister in a long time and I'm worried about her. Okay. We don't want to say, well, you can't talk to your sister, but as a person progresses with their dementia, we cannot ask that person to come back into reality. We have to go into dementia world and we have to live in their world. And sometimes it's a fantasy world. And as long as what we are telling them is not harming them or putting them in danger, sometimes a little white lie is the way to go. And so maybe the answer is, I would love to talk with your sister too. Do you remember when she used to bake cookies all the time?
A little distraction.
Yeah. What was your favorite cookie she used to make? And then suddenly we're not talking about that. We're talking about the cookies and the memories. So it's diverting away from the reality, which is, I'm sorry, you can't talk to your sister, you can't talk to your mom, but to validate them in their question, which is very important. And then let's divert away from the harsh reality into something that's calming, that's nice, that's good. I know, Laura, you always talk about in the CaregiverU classes of reaching that point of contentment with the person that you're caring for. And so this is just another way of being able to hit that nice, even coasting so that you're not raising more issues and causing more problems.
Absolutely.
Got a question about types of insurance for when mom is on Medicare. Now, we will say we are not experts in insurance when it comes to these questions. So not sure what kind of great information that we can give you, but says, if I quit my job, don't have income anymore, want to make sure that as mom is declining, that we still are being able to take care of her. Obviously, we talk a lot about long-term care insurance and wanting to get that earlier instead of later. Once someone has already started developing their physical and cognitive issues, they're no longer going to qualify for it. Medicare does pay for quite a lot of things. And so my recommendation when it comes to questions on insurance is to get in touch with the Area Agency on Aging. They have benefits counselors that will talk to you for free about all of the insurance options, what Medicare takes care of, what it doesn't, what Medicaid will pay for, what it doesn't, what your particular type of insurance will do, and suggestions on how to handle that. The Area Agency on Aging is the pass-through money of the Older Americans Act, and so every major city has one. Here in the Central Texas area, it's the Area Agency on Aging of the capital area. You can just Google Area Agency on Aging. It'll give you their phone number and their website. They are a tremendously good resource for you because you already paid for the services. So they can help you out with a lot of those types of questions that we're just not equipped to handle, things specifically about insurance. They also have an ombudsman's program. So if you have a loved one who is in a long-term care community and you're having issues with the community, they can be the go-between and help you out with that as well. So lots of great services they can help with that. So our answer for the insurance, talk to the Area Agency on Aging, capital area. They've got folks who are well-versed in all of this and they can help you out with that. Got a question about how do we handle resentment when our loved one does not want our help and we know that they have reached a point where we need to give them the help, but they're just going to fight tooth and nail. This caregiver says, I have wasted so much time and energy and I'm just tired. So when we have a loved one who needs help but is not down for it at all, what are some suggestions on how we can help them and kind of move them toward allowing someone to assist them?
Sometimes it's the person that's trying to tell the care receiver that they're needing the help. Sometimes who that is really makes a difference. So maybe finding someone that person really trusts, like a pastor or a close relative or a family friend, maybe talking to them and saying, hey, I could really use your help. Do you mind talking to dad? And letting him know that you've noticed that maybe he's been needing a little more help, and kind of having someone that they trust to really deliver that message. And sometimes the doctor can also be a lot of help in saying, okay, look, it's time for you to start getting a little bit more help with this or that. Sometimes, older adult may really respect their doctor. So finding a different person to try talking to them can really be helpful for some people.
Yeah, as the children of the parents, when we step into the caregiving role, it's that role reversal now. Suddenly we are having to parent the parent. And that's very hard for a lot of times parents to accept. And so using that third party person can really assist. I know it's frustrating that you have said 45,000 times something, and then a sibling from out of town, a cousin, something says the same thing, and they go, oh, you're right, I should do that. And you're going, I've told you that so many times. But, that's just the reality of it. A lot of times as the children, we're too close to the situation.
Yes.
For the parent, and they just don't grasp it. And so a lot of times using that third party, the doctor, get into cahoots with your doctor. I have had to do that in the past in my caregiving, is, talk to the doctor in advance of the appointment and say, here's the issue. Here's where they're fighting me on this. I need you to write them a prescription for whatever it is, and tell them this is for your own medical need. You need to do this. The pastor is a great one. Pastors are tremendously helpful. A neighbor that they really like, that aunt that they love, whoever it is that can get through to them, utilize that person and let them be the one that opens that door, and then be ready to step through it, once that door is opened.
And as far as the resentment, support groups are just wonderful. I've heard of these types of situations many times where family members are frustrated because their care receiver doesn't want help and they're refusing it. You're not alone in that situation. There's a lot of caregivers that have dealt with that and are dealing with that. So finding a support group, if you're not already in one, is going to be very beneficial, because that's where you can vent and you can say, this is what I'm going through. I'm so frustrated. I feel resentful. Those are valid feelings, and it's okay to be resentful and frustrated, but finding positive ways to deal with it is what's really important. So those support groups, sometimes people need to get a professional, talk to a professional, a counselor, or if you are a member of a house of worship, sometimes talking to the leader of the church, one of the church leaders, just whoever you're comfortable talking to, but you definitely need to find positive ways to get that resentment out and those negative feelings. But it's normal and it's okay to have those feelings.
Right. Yes. Got a couple questions from folks who are joining us from out of state and looking for resources in their particular areas. We mentioned the Area Agency on Aging, the Area Agency on Aging. Every major city has one. The idea is that every square inch of the U.S. is served by a area agency on aging. So just Google area agency on aging and the zip code where you are, and it'll tell you the one that is closest to you. They have tremendous amounts of resources. They can help connect you with everything that's in your area, and they are really your go-to wherever you're located. They are also really wonderful for those of you who are the long-distance caregiver. You know, I'm here in Austin, mom is in Lubbock, and we're trying to provide services for her, but I'm here. They can be very helpful in that as well. They can help you identify the resources that are available in the area. They can provide services when you're not there in person.
And a lot of times the doctor's office can connect you with certain resources that you're needing as well, or give you some tips on, because they've also received a lot of the same questions, and sometimes they can send you or give you a number or a website of where you could get on and find some additional resources with what you're dealing with. So you may want to talk with the care receiver's doctor about what you're looking for also.
Right. Couple questions on medications for dementia. Again, we are not medical experts, and so we really can't answer those, unfortunately, but you know, your best friend is going to be the doctor who is caring for your loved one. And so those are questions to ask them. We've had a couple questions about supplements and if they are effective in helping with dementia. Again, everybody's journey is different. And so there's never a one size fits all. There are, depending on the medications that your loved one is taking, there are some supplements that will counteract those medications and can even be very harmful if they're taken with them. So before you try something that's over the counter or something you read online or a blog that you saw, talk to the doctor first. If you don't have the ability to get to the doctor, talk to your pharmacist.
Mhm.
Pharmacists go through much of the same training as doctors do. The only difference is pharmacists don't go through the residency in the hospital that a doctor does. They still have the same knowledge when it comes to the medications. So talk to your pharmacist, because they can help you in understanding how medications work together and how they don't. And be sure and talk to them about any of the over-the-counter that your loved one is taking in addition to the prescribed medications, because they can be a real wealth of healthy information for you and help you immensely. When I was with the American Heart Association, we started a program nationally that was encouraging folks to talk to their pharmacist when they didn't have the opportunity to talk to their doctor. And so that can be a real big help for you. And of course, your pharmacist is going to assist you for free, so you don't have a copay there that you have to give when you're asking for medical advice. So take advantage of that.
But keep in mind that you mentioned about dementia. Sometimes medications can be used to treat symptoms early on, but there's no cure for dementia. Nothing's going to stop it. Nothing's going to reverse it. But definitely your doctor's your best bet for educating you and giving you some advice on those types of medications.
Right. Got a question on how do I find a contractor to help me out in the house? That's a great question, because a lot of our homes were not built for us to age in place, and so we need to have the doors widened, or we need to have grab bars added in the bathroom and those type of things. So where do you find someone who is reputable that can help you out with that?
I do know at one time, and with the pandemic, I'm not sure where they're at, but Meals on Wheels of Austin had a group of volunteers. I don't know if you can get on a waiting list, but they had a group of volunteers that would come in and do things like putting up grab bars. Many times churches have volunteers that will come in and build a ramp or do some kind of a smaller type project. But you may call Meals on Wheels and see if they have any recommendations, or if they're actively having their volunteers working on it. And word of mouth, a lot of times, ask around, ask your friends and family if there's anyone they know of that could come in, that they trust, that could come in. I know a lot of times if I need work done, I'll go through friends and say, who do you use to clean your carpets? Because that they trust that person, and they'll say, yes, use them. So those are some different ideas for a way to address those issues for contractors. You can always use Yelp too and see what reviews say. I check people out a lot on Yelp before I'll give them a call, see what the folks are saying and what their ratings are and those types of things.
Right. And also, once again, a plug for the Area Agency on Aging. They do have a small budget that can help out with those things. And they do have vetted contractors that they can assist. And so they're also a great resource. So check them out because they can assist in those areas as well. I'm just scrolling through all the questions here real quick. We had a couple more medical questions. Again, we're not medical experts. So when you have a medical question, ask your doctor. That's why they're there. So see if they can help you out with those. For those of you who are local here in the Austin area, there is a Round Rock helpers handyman service that provides assistance. Thank you very much, Serena, for that information. It is roundrockhelpers@gmail.com. Round Rock and Williamson County also have organizations that are specific to their areas. The Caring Place in Georgetown provides a lot of great services up in that area. Operation Liberty Hill provides a lot of services for those who are over in the West Williamson County area. Shepherd's Heart, based out of Taylor, provides a lot of great services over in the West Williamson County area. We have the Drive a Senior programs here that also have additional services that can be of assistance besides just the rides, that they can provide connection to a lot of resources like handymen and those types of things. So again, the AGE Central Texas Resource Information Center can help connect you up to all of those things wherever you are. So we can help you to find those. Again, for those of you who are watching this from other parts of the country, your area agency on aging is going to be a really great place where you can connect to that. We've had several questions here about how do I find durable medical equipment? Mom needs this, mom needs that. Where do we find it? Easy answer, AGE Central Texas. We loan it for free. We have a health equipment lending program where you can get it for free from us. Long-term loans, no questions asked. You just give us a call. You tell us what you need. If we have it available, it's yours. There are also other organizations around town that we partner with that also have lending closets. A lot of the churches do as well. Depending on where you are in the regional area, there are a lot of great resources for that. Also, again, Area Agency on Aging, for those of you who are not in this Austin area, in the Central Texas area, they can connect you to those programs as well. On plug for later in this week, day after tomorrow, that is what our session is going to be about. It's going to be all about durable medical equipment. Dr. Amy Walters from South University is going to do an entire presentation on how do you use the durable medical equipment, how do you transfer your loved one from the chair into the bathtub without tearing your back up. Going to be an amazing presentation. So we hope that you'll join us for that one. If that's one of your questions, lots of great information that we'll have there. I wanted to ask you, Lori, a question about the binder. Where's the best place to keep it?
Wherever you, I would keep it in a place where you know that you're just going to be able to find it and not move it. If it's right next to your bed, if it's in your desk drawer, just make sure it stays put and that you don't carry it all over and you don't lose it. And that's why I mentioned the medical binder. You're taking that one out of the house. So it's really good to have the original that doesn't go anywhere and you always know where it is. Designate that spot. And then the one that you're going to take out of the house to doctor's appointments or whatever, make copies and put things in that one so that in case you were to lose it, leave it at the doctor's office, it gets tossed. It doesn't get tossed with all your important information gone forever. So that's why I recommended 2 of those, one that always stays home and one that always leaves. But yeah, just to designate a spot and make sure it never goes anywhere so that you don't lose it.
And make sure that, that it's always in that spot. So in the case of an emergency, you can just grab it and run, that you don't
Where
have
it
to
is.
don't have to worry about looking for it, because that is something you want to be sure that you take with you in the case that you have to go to the hospital, because you need all that information. And it's always very helpful also for, let's say, the charge nurse to be able to see all of that information once you've been admitted into the hospital. Especially, I love that you had put in there about what your loved one likes and doesn't like, because you want to make this as easy on them as it can be in the event that you do have an emergency. And, we talked about routine earlier, how that having a routine is wonderful. When that routine is broken, you want to try to bring some of the stability of that routine back in if you can. And, if dad likes watching old Westerns and the charge nurse knows that, then if you have to leave, charge nurse can make sure the Westerns are on the TV. So, things like that are very, very helpful for the hospital's standpoint, because they want to make the stay as comfortable for your loved one as they can. And so if they have more information, it makes it so much easier for everyone. But, just a couple of more minutes here. Wanted to ask you a question about, we talked about asking for help and how important it is not to become the martyr as the caregiver and trying to do everything. And you need to have a break, and you need to ask for help. How do we ask for help? How do you ask someone, can you help me out? A lot of times we're afraid to ask for it because we're afraid they're going to say no. Or in the case of a sibling, they're just not cut out for caregiving. And so if I ask them to help me, they're just going to turn me down. How do we ask for help?
Well, the answer is always no, unless you ask. And sometimes you'll be surprised to find out. And like I mentioned, okay, the worst thing they can say is no. You can handle no. It's not the answer you want to hear, but that's really, the worst thing they can say is to turn you down. But give them the opportunity to offer you help. And you're talking about the sibling. If the sibling doesn't want to help with the caregiving because maybe it's too upsetting for them to see mom or dad in that type of a situation, then, validate that. I understand that's upsetting for you to see mom or dad, but maybe perhaps you could help by bringing us a meal once a week. Or sending us a gift card so that we can swing by or order food and pick something up. Maybe you can help financially by helping me get the house cleaned. And once a month, I could get a service to come in and just do some light housekeeping. So if they're willing to help with the caregiving, and I'm specifically talking about the family member, the sibling, then maybe ask them, what way would you be comfortable in helping and in helping out?
Yeah, I think
You can,
go right ahead.
sometimes you can also think of a friend of your care receiver, maybe an old friend of your dad's. Wouldn't mind, call him up and say, hey, dad, would love to see you. I would like a little bit of a break. Would you mind coming over and playing checkers with dad while I run to HEB? I'm going to be gone for 30 minutes. Be very specific. When you do ask for help, be very specific and make sure you honor that. If you say you're going to be gone for 30 minutes to HEB, then be gone for 30 minutes and then come back. And like I said, that list of things you can ask, is there any way you can help? I've got these needs. Are there any of them that would be comfortable doing? And that's a good option. And sometimes a person will, oh, I love to cook. I don't mind bringing a meal every couple of weeks. Let's get something on the schedule every other month and I'll drop something by. But a lot of times people are more likely to help if it's something that they don't mind doing, that they're interested in. Sometimes that's a good thing, but that's why making that wish list is a good idea.
And I think you hit it right on the head, is to be very specific in what you're asking for. When you just say, I really need some help, can you help me? That's very broad. And for someone who has no experience in caring for a person, especially someone, if we're talking about someone with dementia, it's very scary. I don't want to see mom this way. So if you're very specific and say, I really need 10 minutes of time to myself in the evening. Can you call dad on the phone every Friday at 7 o'clock and give me just some time to chill? You know, or, you know, the person's indicated they are not comfortable coming to the house. Fine. Do you mind picking up dad's prescriptions at the grocery store for me so that I don't have to pack him in the car, take him there, get him out the car, get back in the car, all of that. If you
Yeah.
can just go pick him up and just drop him on the front porch, that will save me so much time. So be very, very specific in your request for the help. And having your wish list is a great way of being able to organize your thoughts of, okay, what do I need help with? And then from that, you can start drilling down into who could help me with these specific things. And you mentioned, you know, if they say no, they say no. You know, it's not the end of the world. And you'll never know unless you ask. So, you know, and also realize if they say no, it's not no forever. It's just, no, I can't do it right now. And, you know, go back and ask again in a few weeks. You know, they may have thought it over and have reconciled in their own brain how to be comfortable with it. And now they're willing to help. So, you know, don't give up on asking for that help. It is very, very, very important, because if you burn yourself out, if you know, we talked about it's normal to resent doing this. You know, this is hard. This is really hard, and it gets you down, and it wears you down, and you have to be able to recharge your battery. And if you're not recharging your battery, you're going to burn out, and that's not fair to you. It's not fair to the person you're taking care of. And worst case scenario, you make yourself sick, and then no one is there to care for your loved one. So it's, you know, if you take nothing away from today, take away the fact that you have to take care of yourself. There is no shame in asking for help. There's never, ever shame in asking for help. And you need to make sure that you're taking care of yourself, because you're not going to be any good for your loved one if you're not. One last question we have time for here. Question about activities. You know, again, you know, giving myself a little bit of time, finding something for mom, dad, husband, and wife to do to buy me a little bit of time. Looking for, where do I find a list of activities that we can do? And most specifically, what happens if I start an activity and it causes a negative reaction from my loved one? The example this person was asking is saying that it's hard for mom to do a puzzle, even, you know, one with only 10 pieces in it. It's difficult. But, you know, sometimes looking through magazines comes across a picture that triggers a memory that is sad. And then we go down a rabbit hole. So what's a good way of finding an activity that my loved one can do that's not going to backfire on me?
Well, one thing you need to keep in mind is you're an expert on your person. So what fits their personality? What did they used to like to do? What did they do as a job? If they've always enjoyed gardening, you can do more simple activities. You have to basically fit it with what they're capable of doing and what their interests are. And you have to simplify it sometimes. But if the mom no longer likes doing the puzzles, then it's time to think back and, you know, maybe she used to like to sew. So maybe I could get a shoestring and we could get some beads and maybe just put the beads on the shoestring. Think about the things that they used to like to do and think about what they're still capable of doing and what they might enjoy. And it's trial and error. As far as if they get upset, then distraction, for sure. If they're looking, they see a picture that's upsetting, then it's time to put it away and just to say, you know what, I'm getting hungry. Let's go look and see if we have a snack that might seem good, and distraction. And then obviously it's trial and error. You're not going to do that again with the magazine. You know, you just have to, like I said, caregiving is messy and it's trial and error. So, yeah. You know, as time goes by, you're going to start to, through observation, to realize what works, but really connect, go back in time and think about what they used to do for a living, or what some of their hobbies were, and try to simplify and go with that. I know dailycaring.com had an article once about dementia activities for someone with dementia, and they had a lot of great ideas. And so you may also want to get on that website and kind of search through that and see if you can find that article. And
Also, I'll give a plug once again for our YouTube channel, AGE of Central Texas. Just go to YouTube, search AGE of Central Texas, and it'll give you our channel. We had a seminar earlier this past year on activities that you can do with your loved one, and we went through all the different stages of dementia, from early memory loss through people who are just very low performing, things that you can still do that's engaging and meaningful for your loved one. Also on the AGE of Central Texas website, we have a web page with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of activities. We created it when COVID first started and everybody had to go into lockdown, with just hundreds of things that you can do that you can share with your care partner, things that you can do online. There are tons of activities that you can do. There are websites that you can look through, virtual tours that you can take. You can go visit zoos and museums and
live webcams. Yes.
Just lots of great stuff. So that's a good jumping off place where you can go take a look at all of that, find some great stuff there that you can share with your loved one. And again, you know, there's some great things there that perhaps, you know, some good videos they can watch, 15, 20 minutes long, gives you time to chill out a little bit and recharge your battery. We are at the magic number point here on our time. We have run out of time. And so we thank you so very much for joining us today. Lori, thank you for all of the expert information, all the great suggestions. We really appreciate it. And we thank you personally for joining us today. We know that caregiving is very difficult. Like Lori said, it's messy and it can be hard, but there are so many great things that can come out of it. And being prepared for your journey and having those tools that you need can make it so much easier for you. Once again, AGE of Central Texas is here to assist you no matter where you are in your journey. We can help you one-on-one with whatever it is that you need. Call us, email us, let us be of assistance to you. As Lori mentioned, we have our CaregiverU classes that go on all year long. And so take a look at those in your program that was sent to you, and we're going to resend it to everyone. There is a flyer in there about all of those classes. You can go to the website, find the classes. We update it regularly as we add more classes as new ones come along. And if you're joining this after the fact, down in the description area is going to be a link to all those resources. So you can click on that. It'll give you the PDF of everything that we've talked about here today. We thank you so very much. We're going to have this available on the YouTube channel very shortly. And then tomorrow and the next 3 days are going to be the remainder of our caregiver training camp. So we will see you again tomorrow, 1 o'clock. We hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day and have a wonderful, wonderful day. Take care.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.